everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Musing of Modern Mystics. My name is Lorelei Hewitt.
And I'm John Davis.
Hello. And I'm just going to make sure the volume... Oh, there we go. All right.
All right.
There we go. The technical complexities of the iPhone. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes.
It's a couple of days away. And John and I were talking about... I'm going to just hit wave there. Hi, Tilly. John and I were talking about how useful Thanksgiving can be, or any family gathering for that matter.
But it happens to be that Thanksgiving is the one time where most people go home to their family of origin or their tribe of origin. And it is a long-term relationship. That's different from, having a dinner party with a few of your current friends or your guests. But Thanksgiving, you're going back into the past. You're going back into the way you were. And so all of the changes that you've done spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, all are coming to bear on this whole group of people that you have known for most of your life, and who you have relationships with that are pretty much in cement. So the question is, can you be a different person? Can you be the person that you are now, not the person you were then, even if other people are uncomfortable with it, or even you're uncomfortable with it, because it's easy for you to just slip back into the way you were.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? It's like, I'm 54 years old. I've got a 25-year-old son, and I go back to, my parents' house. I actually, not this Thanksgiving, but at other holidays, Christmas, whatever.
Yeah.
And, it's like my mother can say to me something that my friends say to me, and it just will offend me for days on end, for days. I'll be like, oh, can you believe she said that? Here, look at, I'll show the text to my friends. I was like, can you believe she said that? Oh, your mother's so mean. Yes, they'll agree with me. And I'm like, she's not. She just, like all of us, we can be kind of weird sometimes. But when a parent does that, it's like there's this bruise on our soul that kind of gets like pushed and plotted. And you're right, it is a great way to know, have I really processed that kind of weirdness inside my soul, my mind, my heart, my psyche, whatever. And sometimes I find that it may be that my body is okay with it, but my mind is not. Or, there's still work to be done, and one of those many layers that needs to be changed still, which is kind of a segue into the next half of our topic around this. We'll come back to the Thanksgiving weird stuff, but we were talking about how change really has to take place on a lot of different levels for it to be really, really permanent. And not just permanent, but for it to be...
It's alive. It's a live and living portion of you.
Yes.
If you learn something new at 12 volts, but you're living at 120, then it doesn't get incorporated that easily. It's just an interesting idea, but the way your life has a momentum here, and so the change doesn't come into it until you bring it up to that level of intensity that your life exists at. And so the question we have is like, how do you bring these new changes or these new thoughts or these new emotional patterns or these new spiritual awarenesses into your normal everyday life so that change occurs? So that when you hit Thanksgiving, you are the change. Not that you slip easily back into an old comfort zone and you reaffirm the way you were.
Right. I went to the TED Talks this past Saturday, and there was one man, I'm sorry I don't remember what his name is, I'll post that on Facebook so I can acknowledge his talk and his wisdom, but he had this fun thing about personas. Now this goes against the grain of living authentically. So what he suggested was that you become like Bruce Wayne. So Bruce Wayne is really Batman, right? But he walks through life, yeah, okay, I'm a rich guy, I'm a dude, but that's not what really gets me through all of the weird stuff in my life. It's the fact that I'm actually Batman, saving these lives behind you in the back of your mind. That's my, that's kind of, you could say that's his true self, is the Batman, is the real Bruce Wayne. At least we all hope so, because we need him to save the world, right? So this man was suggesting that you take on a persona. And I thought, that's kind of cool. I think we have to have a sense of who we really are. At the core of it, we do need to know, you need to know who you are authentically, or who you're striving to be. But especially if you're not totally solid in this new version of yourself, but you're sort of leaning into that, try taking on a persona. When growing up, I always joke, I made this joke to you, Paul. I'm sorry,
hey,
John. Paul's my husband's name. It's like, yes. Anyway, I got high a lot when I was in high school. And the joke was, back then, it's like, when I was really little, I wanted to be an astronaut, but all I got to do was be a space cadet, right? That's as far as I got. Anyway, I was really kind of known in my family for being not focused, for being out there. I liked meditation, I got high, and I was just kind of like pushing those boundaries. I didn't push a lot of boundaries that other people push, but I was pushing those consciousness boundaries. So they had this idea of me, and when I would go back even 10 years later, they would think that that's who I was.
Right.
And I'm not at all. But I did find it's like I had to step into, even though I didn't necessarily think of myself as a healer just yet, like when I was 30, but I would have to really push a persona of myself forward that is not in one who is a spaced out space cadet. So that is it. I'm just going to toss that out to people to play with. If you're not quite sure about who you are, just pretend, like take on a persona for a while to protect yourself. Like I am a marketing genius, right? That might be a recommendation for my son Zach. I'm a marketing genius, and I do know that, and just kind of lean into that and pretend like you're Bruce Wayne, who's actually Batman. It's a persona. But how do you know that it's just a persona? I mean, because you don't want to live your life pretending to be something that you're not, which is what got you meeting the persona in the first place.
Well, that old persona is like totally grounded in comfort and survival. And so you have to figure out some change of comfort, and you have to be careful of comfort. We all want to be comfortable, but you have to be comfortable, and survival has its own data regime, and it makes you into the person who goes to Thanksgiving or goes to these family things, and everybody expects you to be completely the same. So they expect you to show up late. They expect you to be disheveled. They expect you to be, not have it all together. Or they expect you, on the opposite, to be like, arrive before that and help with everything and do what you're supposed to do and not irritate anybody and be okay with whatever it is that's happening, and because that's who you've always been.
Right.
But if you're trying to change, if you're trying to open to something new in your life, you might have to invoke some of these personas like Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I remember that when we were doing, I was with Laura, and she was an actress, and so we went to this comedy improv class, and the guy said, I want all of you people to work on 5 different personalities that are different from who you are. And so that if the situation comes up, that you can respond with either yourself or one of the 5 personalities that you have invented for yourself. And so those 5 personalities would have a different comedic line on whatever it was. But, if they called out in the audience for some particular situation, there might be one of your 5 characters that would be perfect for it. And so in that way, you begin to get loose with your own, like, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is when I'm backed into a corner, when I have to face an audience, when I have to, look in front of my, peers or my family. I just don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to go anywhere where somebody will have an attitude. So I might as well go with what they already, they already have for me. So this is like, no. It's like, this is a new audience. This isn't your family. Figure out which of your 6 personalities you're going to be. And all of a sudden, we created some space where we didn't necessarily have to go back to that. We could pick another way of doing, answering, processing, thinking about what it was that we are and what we're doing. And although, the personalities don't stick because they're not true for you, it does allow your core personality to begin to make adjustments because you have pulled away from the fiber or the spider web of ego identification that have caused you to always be this particular way when faced with that particular situation.
There is something to that, isn't there? Because there's something to being observed, right? And being the observer of things. We know now that what we observe and how we are observed actually does affect us very strongly. We want to think that, what they say or do doesn't matter, but it does. We know that, at least on a quantum physics level, we know that those things do matter. And so shifting, I like that, shifting like how people perceive you, just to break up the rigid ideas of who they think you are, might be actually really useful, just so long as you know who you really are inside, and you can go like, yeah, you know what, I got to be kind of a goofball at Thanksgiving, where normally I'm the serious one, but it kind of shook everybody's idea of who I am enough so that their thought forms about who you are loosened up a little bit, so that you're not, like you were saying, the spider web factor. You're not. I want to think about Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and that persona thing
you're,
too.
You're
right?
not constrained to be exactly the same.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. There is a conflict inside of you, and in order to be comfortable with these people, you go back into your routine.
Yeah.
And so we have to go, how do we change things? How do we, I was using the idea of, okay, if we want to lose some weight or we want to change a bad habit, how do we do that? And you could force yourself to not eat stuff. You can force yourself, like if you interrupt people all the time with your own thing, or you allow other people to interrupt you all the time, then how do you change that? Well, first, you have to go, who are you in that situation spiritually? Who are you in that situation mentally? Who are you as a set of emotional reactions, sad, mad, glad, scared? Who are you in terms of how you move in your body with these people? So the people, that are there, it's like you find yourself moving the way you've always moved, thinking the way you've always thought, feeling how it is other people might react to you being this way or that way. And so all these things are a constraint on you. So you can't just change one thing and then hope to lose some weight. You can't change. You have to change a bunch of things. If there's 18 things that are involved in that particular way of being, and you just change 2, guaranteed this won't last.
That's right. Yeah, that's something you and I were talking about before we started the FaceTime. I'm going to say the FaceTime live show. I almost said podcast, but it's not. Yeah. is that it really, there's chemical stuff that happens in our bodies. We need to be aware of that. But then there's emotional stuff that triggers chemical stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That can affect our digestion, that can affect the way we feel about things. It can affect our moods. Are we depressed? Are we happy? There are soul things from past lives, from contracts, agreements that we've made with other souls that we want to have experiences with. And there's a complex, you can have soul loss, which is a whole nother show, but just trust me, you could lose it, little pieces here or there, whatever. There's sort of a spiritual illness that you can have, which is, I think the spirit is kind of different than the soul, at least the way I think of it and define it. Little headline that said, avoid turkey, something, something. I'm like, no, we can't do that right now. I'm sorry. I'm doing this live on the phone. I get little news blurbs on there, and it's interesting to me that it said avoid turkey. I'm like, is this from spirit? Because my stomach is kind of upset. I'm not supposed to be eating. Anyway,
if once a year is the only time you eat any turkey, you're going to have a stomachache.
That's true.
Because the heavy proteins are going to be, if you're a vegetarian and this is the one time a year that you're going to go eat some of your family's turkey,
it's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt. So you got to you got to go there with digestive enzymes and something for the stomach, some particular kind of acid that'll break down the heavy proteins, because we always know that when we change our diet in the very beginning, we have to have the right kinds of additives, so to speak, so that we're going to digest that. You can't just start a new diet and hope that the system will adjust, simultaneously.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with our head and our emotions and everything else.
True.
It's like we have to prepare the eyes to see something different. We have to prepare the ears to hear something different, and for our sense of whether we're fearful or not. What are the things that will trigger fears? And if we change, and we're in the middle of Thanksgiving, it will tend to descend into what's comfortable, because we're afraid to change, afraid to show them that, because they can criticize that.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you trying to be, a big shot now? Or what are you doing? So I always remember, and I think I've said this before in other shows, is that when I first started this healing thing, and so what was I, 25, 26 or something, I went back to see my father, and he said, what do you do for a living? Which one of your long-haired, stringy wench friends got you into that garbage?
Right.
It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
And you're some kind of a healer? Yeah. And then, he had cancer. And this is years and years later. And, I was at the house, and Jane said, Johnny, can you, whatever you do, could you do some of that on Dad? And so I put my hands on him. I had him lie down on the carpet, put my hands on him, and his eyes opened up, and he looks over toward the kitchen and says, Jane, this boy's got hands. And I remember black clouds coming out of the back of my neck that must have been there for a long time, and I just worked around them, and I felt them lifting. It was like all those years, and I finally had some approval from my father, and I didn't know I was having to go buy that stuff. But I look back at it and I go, you're right, I would never go into a Thanksgiving dinner and say, I do this, I do that. Somebody would have to ask me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't volunteer that I'm some kind of psychic healer, or that I was somebody would have to ask me, what do you do again? And so and I might say it in hushed tones, but it was all of a sudden, I became free to just be who I am and be that in the middle of the world. And so it was like, I went, wow. So I've always looked for, when I see brilliant people who have changed their life and have become healers and have opened to the healing energy that's coming from their heart through their hands, and I was like, hey, let me see if I can loosen up this stuff in the back of your neck, because I recognize this limitation that you place on yourself, because I know that. And so I think that, so when we talk about the Thanksgiving test, I'm saying it's just one of the ways that you can see how much you have actually changed and how much you've inhabited who you are relative to this old paradigm.
Relative to your relatives.
Relative to your relatives.
Right? Yeah, it's really true. It's it's a great litmus test. So, so when you go back to the family, and don't look at these things as traumas or being upset about, oh, they said this or they did that. Look at it and go, oh, all right. There's still some work I can do on myself about healing certain things. And notice, do you think it is just physical? Is it mental?
Yeah.
Is it spiritual, soulful? Yeah. What is it that you might be able to do so next time when you visit, you're standing even more powerfully in your authentic self, so that someday you can actually show up to dinner in your Batman suit. And you can say, yeah, I don't need this mask anymore. This is just who I am. We're all take it or leave it, you know? And that would be awesome. Anyway, so
there you go.
Go forth, be Batman or Spider-Man or Batwoman. Anyway.
There you go.
All right. Have an awesome Thanksgiving.
Yeah, fantastic. Have a great time.
Are you here next Monday?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk to you after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.
We'll see how it goes.